Perfect. Okay. So the basic question of the Maimon were that the simple meaning of the pasuk contradicts the Medrash. The simple meaning of the pasuk is just like the days to get out of Mitzrayim, I'll show you wonders. It's making an equation between the two. And the Medrash says that there'll be wonders compared to Yetzias Mitzrayim. So how do you reconcile the simple meaning and the Medrash? He makes the point that of all the Nisim, Kriyas Yamsuf is the biggest Nes. And the Rabbi is in Al Treb in Tanya, he wants to bring an example of a Nes. He brings the example of Kriyas Yamsuf, and like was in Chazal, if something is a Dvar Pele or kosher or difficult, it's Kriyas Yamsuf. And in fact, that'll also be then. That's V'hechem Hashem es l'shen Yam Mitzrayim. Hashem will dry up the tongue of the Egyptian sea and then wave his hand over the river, striking the 7 streams. So again, at the Pshat level, it's an equation about the Yalkut, Pashas B'Shalach, that I'll show you, which I didn't show to the others. So how do you reconcile the two? It's only Kumei Tzeischo in the Tzeischo of the Medrash. This was the second question. And the second question was the bottom of the ois. The second question is on the Medrash itself, basically. It's going to be greater than just say it's going to be a Pele, and don't draw any comparison at all. What comes out to the end of the Maimar? Now, in hindsight, end of the Maimar, the answer is in one word, without going to all of the pratim, just in one word, and reconciling these basic two questions. The h'tchk, on one hand, doesn't speak about the Maliovavitch Mitzrayim per se. What it does say is that the Pnimius, Behelem, the Giloyim that will take place, Lasid Lave, are all present already in Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's the answer. Elsewhere, Chassidus, he gives another answer, Taki. Elsewhere, Chassidus, the answer is that even though Lasid Lave, it's going to be h'tchk, but there's a mile in the Avodah V'Skafi. And therefore, we're going to mention that as secondary, at least by Lasid Lavi, we'll always mention Yetzias Mitzrayim because the preciousness and the mila of fighting with the Yetzer Hara and winning by the skin of your teeth over his h'tchk, but not the answer here, it's over his h'tchk. But the answer here is that no, that the whole Avodah, it's not completely dissimilar, but whatever be achieved then is already inherently embedded and present, behelem, at least in a concealed way, by Yetzias Mitzrayim. Okay, so that's the answer at the end. The whole Maimon, which is a hemshech of the previous ones to explain it. Let's look at his base. So let's glance at it a bit. So he brought several midrashim with respect to the matter which Moishe Rabbeinu stretches over the origins of the matter over Kriyas Yamsuf. What's the first thing he brings is Medrash and Bereshis Rabbah and Shemais Rabbah, and says, with the Medrash states, which is going to be a question soon, that Kriyas Yamsuf is in the schus of whom? Of Yaakov. Right away, with Tzarech Lahavin. Kriyas Yamsuf is in the schus of Moishe. He brings the Medrash. There was a whole debate between the Yam and Moishe. Who were you to split me? Says the Yam. I was created before you. The Medrash goes on to say that Moishe defeats the Yam in the end with Hashem's help. But that's very clear that who defeats the Yam? Moishe. So what does it mean? That's the first question now. That the Kriyas Yamsuf is b'schus Yaakov ki b'makli avarti sayarden. Yaakov crossed the Yarden with his staff. Actually, he split it also. It's the schus of Moishe. So now he brings the Midrash Chazal as to the origin of this Yaakov, of the stick. There's 2 days. The first day, you can trace it there. Where does it come from? It starts with who? The one we just mentioned. Huh? Yeah, it starts with Yaakov, then it's transferred to Yehuda, then to Moishe, then to Aaron, then to David, then to every Melech, till Churban Beis HaMikdash, and then the future will be given to the hands of Mashiach. That's 1 day. The second day doesn't originate with Yaakov, but it starts where? In Gan Eden. The Eitz Hadas Toivara. The Medrash says that's why this stick wasn't just used for good things. Moshe strikes the rock when he's told to speak to it at the end. But it's a very different thing in the Medrash. When he does tshuva, Moshe does tshuva, he's given the Eitz HaChaim. So that's this second day, that it's all the Eitz in Gan Eden, first the Eitz Hadas Tevra, and the Eitz HaChaim. The conclusion of these Midrash Chazal second day looks like it's a Medrash. It's also brought in a Zoya, but it's also brought in Medrash. So it comes out, what's the inclusion of these bays there? So there are different levels to the makel, to the staff. There's the makel of Yaakov, the makel of Moshe. And above that is the makel of Mashiach. He kind of puts it all together. He's not reconciling the Midrash. Just saying that the Medrash is telling us that there's different levels. He says the Mat of Mashiach is a Makal Noyam. It's a pleasant stuff. It's not required to enforce law, but to lead. Okay, but the basic shaila was, what was the basic shaila of this base? The third line, what was the Tzarech Lahavin? Why does it say it's the schus of Yaakov? Surely it's the schus of Moishe. In retrospect, what's the answer in one word? Right. It's one Indian, namely Tiferes Das, transcendent level of Likus, only by virtue of which can be Hafachyon Layabosha. So it's a Yaakov and Moshe. The answer is Chusay Shel Yaakov. That was the diak at the end. The Chusay Shel Yaakov is the Chusay is higher than the person himself. It's a merit he carries. What Chus do you have? So it's the Yaakov's Chus is Moshe. Moshe is the etzem. It doesn't use the word etzem, but it comes out, even though Yaakov ascends, it's connected to Pnimius HaKesef. Within Pnimius HaKesef Guf, Moshe Rabbeinu is Pnimius Atik. Although he could have even said, he may have even employed that Lashon for, no, Pnimius Atik Mamish, that is, because Atik itself is already the Pnimius. But Pnimius Atik is the etzem, that's Moshe Rabbeinu. So it's one union. And the kud of the whole thing is really just to bring out that in order to have the chibur of Alma Diskas and Alma Disgalia, you need to have a transcendent level that's beyond both, and that's Dafke Tiferes, Yaakov / Moishe. Okay. So now let's go more Arichas, Reis Gimel. So there are 2 days with respect to how Kriya Samsov worked. The Zoya and the Arizal. The Zoya says elevation. The Arizal says Amshacha. It doesn't go into explaining the 2 days, but what he wants to bring out is, but Aval to both days, we're talking the Chibur of Afachim. And that leads us to, and it's known that you can't have a fusion of opposites without only through a revelation of that which is beyond both. So Kriyas Yamsuf was the chibur of Yam and Yabosha, not just Lamatam, and all Seder Ishtarshalas. It's very important later in the Maimon. In all Ishtarshalas. So we have need, therefore, an Oy, which is higher. It's all relative. In Alma Disgalia and Alma Discassia, in all of the levels. Because what's Alma Discassia for one world, for a higher world is Alma Disgalia. Alma Disgalia means revealed, manifested, sense of separation. So it's all relative. So therefore, we're talking about a madrega that's higher, like completely than Ishtarshalas, and that's Ian of Yaakov. Yaakov is what? In the Mishkan, he was the what? The Bria Chatichim. Kavem Tzoi, which ascends to Pnimius HaKeser, Sholem. That's Sholem. Sholem is the Keli, the Gemara says. The end of Shas, Masechta Uktzin. The Sholem was the Keli, which contains Birchas Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the ultimate Giloi. And that is the inyan of who? Of Yaakov. Then he brought, where do we see this in Yaakov's Avodah? One of his big mysterious Avodah, this explains, is the whole business with the what? With the peeling of the maklis. Again, we're talking about the makal. This is the makal of Yaakov, which according to the Medrash is given to Moishe. What does he do with this stick? He's peeling it. And the pasuk says that it's a white stick, moist, and then hazelnut and brown. So the vanda is chesed, and the dark color is a brown, that's gvura. And he's peeling it. He defines that as the netiyah to chasadim ki yadua. In other words, making gvura chesed. So we see that in his avodah there, the fusion of chesed and gvura. So that's the end of Yaakov, which is required in order to effect hafach yam layabosh. However, he goes on to say, now he explains why we need the end of Moishe Rabbeinu. So if we go further, do you remember just in a word or two, what's the nakud of the answer? Why Yaakov per se is not enough, even though he says he's oila at pnimius hakeser, chibar afochim, his avodah of the maklis, he's still needing of Moishe Rabbeinu. What is unique about Moishe Rabbeinu over the others? This is the Nakuda, in a sense, the heart of the Maimon. In a way, but anyway, it's here now in this at the end of Ois Gimel. Yeah, so then the Shomer, attack on the Shomer that Tzilas has his Moishe Rabbeinu. However, then the Shomers, when they come down to the world, they travel through Ishtarshalas, what happens is what? They are affected. Yeah. They are affected. So let me ask you, I don't know if we addressed this, but we did kind of. So what's the difference? If they're affected by Ishtarshalas, then what's the difference between the Shomas of the others and everybody else? All the Shomas started in Atzilus, all Chachmat Atzilus, and even higher. Chelek Elakam, Mamish, Altheb and Tanya, they all begin with Chachmat Atzilus. But what happens is, the Shomas ascend through Ishtarshalas and then assume the formal limitation of Ishtarshalas, depending on how far they descend. So what's the difference between the neshamas of the office and everybody else? The emphasis is the same question is not just on the office, it's on everybody else. What does it mean? The Metzias is every neshama goes through all of Ishtarshalas to get into this guf. That's a Metzias. So what's a neshama debris as opposed to neshama of Yitzirah? Everybody goes through it. It's the same question. Well, understand what I'm asking? What does it mean to be in the neshama of Atzilus down here? And in the neshama of Atzilus gufa, we're drawing a distinction between the Avos and Moishe Rabbeinu. So it comes out, there's three ways the neshama comes down. There's the way that all of us come down, everybody else, not neshama atzilus. And in that gufa, there's levels. It can be the neshama debriya, which are the tanoya. When the neshama is dasiya, where the malchus dasiya, that's what Rabbi says in Tanya. That's one way. Then there's a second way, where the neshama, although it journeys down through all of h'shtalshalos, it's not affected, doesn't become mislabish, mamish in the ilamas, like neshamas that do. And again, there's different stations along the way as to how far the slabshus goes. And then there's the neshama of Moishe Rabbeinu. So let's explain it. The first oifen is Pashat. Well, actually, to explain the first oifen is to explain the second oifen as well. Because even in the first oifen, they're neshama sabriya. So what does it mean, neshama sabriya? They went down to Yitzir and Nasi also. It's the same question. Essentially, it's the same question, though not really. That means it could be machalik, but overall, it's the same question. The answer is, there's Yerida b'derech eslapshus and Yerida b'derech maive. There's a Yerida where a person, like we spoke about this a while ago, Mr. There's an example. There's moving to a different culture. From one city to another, one culture to the other, a lower culture. It's a lower one, less. So there's two ways to be there. So one way is you become part of the culture. That's islapshus. The other way is you still retain your whole state of being, your attitudes, your whole demeanor, but you relate to them. You're there, you can relate. So that's in between islapshus and derech maive. Derech islapshus means that the neshama is pashat mitzumtzem and becomes part of that world. That world defines it, defines its whole state of being. And therefore, the lower it goes, the more defined it becomes. Only Neshamas have to go down through all of his townshilas. But by Hashem's decree, Neshamas the Bria, going further, descending further into Yitzir and Asiyah, it's B'derech Maivet. So therefore, these are Neshamas that come down to the world, and they're very elevated, refined human beings by nature, very lofty people. They carry with them this profound sense of royalty, of dignity that is apparent. Huh? The others when Islabish and Atzilus, that's where it ended. And then from Atzilus, Lamata, they are B'derech Maiver. However, like them, and likewise Neshama, it's the same principle, Neshama the Bria, that then goes Derech Maiva. What happens is, such a person, here's the Nakuda, and we contrast to Moishe Rabbeinu, such a person, to maintain his integrity, there's a certain, it's only possible keeping distance from the world. The more he engages, the more externally al kopanim he is affected. That's why the office chose to be for shepherds, to maintain their Atzilus identity and not have it marred. Is it like an avodah or it's like a Messias? That's why they were like that. It's both. Sometimes it's an avodah to choose that. It's not easy. So what happens if such a neshama does not put up walls? First of all, it's painful, it's difficult, right? And uncomfortable for the neshama in this world. So there's always this sense of distance. And then l'chura, it could mean also there could be a yerida, not a yerida neshama, not in the person, not a yerida b'pnimius, but b'chitzonius certainly, behaviorally, can be compromised. Yosef somewhere in between, yeah. I'm not. I have to think about that. what's the reason for all of this? Because these are the neshamas that are all tziyurim, giloi, oir. And if it's giloi and it's a tziyur and it's oir, it is vulnerable. It's vulnerable. Another tziyur, a strong tziyur, can make a dent and compromise and be affected. But Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama is an atzmi. Again, it's not the oisius of the maimah, but that's what it means. He has to be. He's neshama klalis. So Moshe Rabbeinu, an atzmi, wherever you place him, is A, fundamentally unaffected, and B, can effect transformation. Because not spoil at all from the environment. And moreover, because he's an atzmi, he can unlock the etzem where he is. The Eibishter is everywhere. And can make that place a dir b'tachtonim. Huh? Yeah. Yosef is more, he said, in between Moshe and, he was a Nasi, he was also the leader. Moshe, so it was Yaakov for that matter. I told you, Nasi is Rosh Tevis, the Tzutz Shel Yaakov Avinu. Yeah, but it's manifested low, it's Yesod. So it's, I don't know, it's again, Tzarech Ir, it's an asthmatic property, but Begolo, it's lower. Tzarech in a little bit to understand. Yosef had it fits in. It's not the emphasis of the Maim. The emphasis of the Maim is to understand. So that we gave an overview. Let's just go through it in the Maimon itself. Good morning, Ronnie. We're gonna start at 6:30. We've got 5 minutes. So Ronnie's listening to.
Thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
you know what?
Your presence doesn't require an apology. It
requires, God bless you.
It requires.
Thank you so much.
So
sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not. Okay. So what is he saying here? He starts off to bring out the mile of Moishe this is very important. This is very telling. That only Moishe is mamshech the shechina lamata. What does it come out? What are the shivarikiyim? It's something which is maybe obvious, but it was new to me. The shivarikiyim are what? It's all in Atzilus. That's the whole Amshach. And what the Vatri is saying is that it's not that each one had their role. Stop here, don't go further. Can't go further. That's as far as each tzaddik could be mamshech the Shechina. Why? Because it's all within the world of Giloyim. He can be mamshech the Shechina to a level that is welcoming to that level. Okay, it's a lower level, but still in the same world. As long as it's in his same world, then he can affect the Giloyim and Amshacha and Chibur. Even Chibur, I'm discussing all on relative levels. But outside the world of Atzil is completely lost. No shaykhs. Only Moshe brings the Shechinah Lamata. It's not because he was number 7, so fine. He did the last effect of the last stage. Only he could bring the Shechinah Lamata in Elam Hazar Gashmi Mamish, because again, Moshe ben Zasham is in Pnimis Ikesa Guf, Pnimis Atik, and in Atzmi, for which there are no barriers at all, and the Shechinah can be revealed in Elam Hazar and is. Where do we see this? In the Zohar. What's in the middle of that? It's interesting Zohar that points out the difference between Avram, for example, and Moshe. Both of them, what do they share in common in the pasuk? What? Avram, Moshe. But Avram, there's psik time beinayu. There's a line, literally, not in the Torah, but in the timing which were passed down orally, Torah Shebal Peh, the Nekudas, and the timing. There is a line between one Avram and the other. What does that line mean? The first Avram is Avram Natzilus, and the second one is Avram Nimshach Lamata, and that's already protected. It's a whole, it's a compromise. Coming to this world is a compromise, and to survive it, you've got to insulate. And that's how it was till the Deir HaShvi, till the Rebbe. Till our generation, Jews survived dafke by being separate, where we assimilated. It would have chas v'sholem. When Jews became part of the broader society, they assimilated. And that was the template. The template of Jewish survival is insulate and isolate, create bastions of Torah. And that's what it was for millennia, starting with the others. Along came the Deir HaShvi, the Moishe Rabbeinu, the consummate Moishe Rabbeinu, and says, now it's a whole new Avodah. Shlichus, how could this be? The answer is because the Etzem and the Neshama are being revealed now. Then you can go to the furthest points in the world and not only not be compromised by it, but transform it. That's mamish, our generation. That's Moishe. Moishe began it then, the Deir HaShvi then, with the Shechina Lemata, and it's fully playing out in our generation now.
You can only do it by virtue of your being kosher.
And it's only possible through the Moishe within, exactly. That's him Neshama within. If the Shliach is going out on his own,
You see that in other groups or other people that do something similar, it's not the same thing. It doesn't not necessarily last.
yeah, well, they never even go on a one-way ticket. Yeah, they won't even dreams to send someone forever to who knows where. You go for a stint, and a year or two. Huh?
It's a stepping stone to a puppet.
Yeah, or whatever. I mean, there's kiruv, it's beautiful, but it's the drawstrings are held very closely to the source. No one's expected to stay there forever. Can't. Exactly. Okay. So we'll stop here and continue our chazara, as we will now transition to our next group of beautiful neshamas. I'll just close this. Good morning, Ronnie again, and good morning, Ari. As you're on mute, I see. I just want to stop this. Okay.